The Jets have been crashing and burning for my entire life, but really it's been exacerbated these recent few years, and it's kind of ticked over the top with the current era that they're in. So we're going to go ahead and take a look back at the Robert Saleh era of, I believe it was 2021 onward. That was also subsequently when they took Zach Wilson second overall. So that kind of is the start of this era, new head coach, new QB. And we're going to take a look at what led to him being fired, what has happened since he's been fired, and then the outlook onto their offseason, what roster moves we think they should make, some players we think they may move on from, and all of that. So I know you did a lot of the research on the Robert Saleh era itself. So if you would like to kick us off there and discuss some of the highlights here, then go for it.
Yep. So this was, as a Lions fan, this was kind of a tight little thing because the Robert Saleh, Dan Campbell, both hired in the same year. So there was kind of like some talk of like, oh, who got the right guy? And, 4 years later, I wouldn't really say that Robert Saleh is the wrong guy. I think it was the wrong organization. Because there's certainly a lack of faith, and we'll get into that when we get into the more current times of Robert Saleh. But starting off in 2021, this roster was not a great one. They did have very notable strong pieces on the defense with Quincy Williams, Bryce Hall, and Michael Carter. Sorry, Michael Carter's the DB. Bryce Hall was not.
No, both DBs.
No, Bryce Hall is who I'm thinking of. These damn names. And they have Michael Carter the second. I'm just, okay. Nonetheless.
Michael Carter the second is the DB. Michael Carter, the other one, is the running back from UNC.
And I mixed it up because, of course, they are similar positions with similar names and similar, the fact that there's two of those positions and names. And, of course, as he mentioned with Zach Wilson, this season for them would unequivocally suck. Offensively, they were ranking 28th, and then defensively, they ranked 32nd. So you hire in Bob Saleh. This is a good defensive coordinator from a good organization, and this is the first season. You maybe start having some doubts from this defensive head coach. But in 2022, they really take a step, like huge step, because they go ahead and they get rookie Sauce Gardner, and he gets a Pro Bowl season. Quinnen Williams gets a Pro Bowl season. And while Zach Wilson and his effectiveness on the offense doesn't improve, in fact, it actually decreased because they went from ranking 28th in the league to 29th in the league. The defense did jump up to being fourth best. And this was kind of the stretch of the years where they're not super bad like they were, but they're not good enough. And they need that little push. And so after the 2 seasons of that, you look at the team and they're really trying to make a big splash. And so heading into 2023 is when the Aaron Rodgers big splash happened. They go ahead and they make that big trade, and they brought in Nathaniel Hackett as the offensive coordinator because they, really wanted to lay some little treats for Aaron Rodgers to nibble on as he made his way into the Jets building, and then they locked him in. A real animal control vibe and analogy I was going with there. But Nathaniel Hackett, comes in to be the offensive coordinator, and Aaron Rodgers, and there's so much hype. It was meteoric because Aaron Rodgers had been playing so great the years prior with his MVPs, and then, his Achilles had other things to say. So now he's right back to coaching a team that has Zach Wilson leading the offense. Nathaniel Hackett, who I think we can all agree wasn't in his best bag as offensive coordinator of the past few years. He didn't get this offensive coordinator job because he got promoted. No. He got demoted. He was fired, and this is his landing spot after that. But defensively,
and it was just as incentive for Aaron Rodgers as well. It's not because he's some offensive mastermind. It was like, hey, Aaron, we got you.
Yeah, it was, hey, we still suck offensively, so this will at least be a lateral move. And, hey, Aaron, you really wanted to come to New York, right? You love a big market. Career was not in a big market, but you love a big market, right? But defensively, the team would still see Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams make the Pro Bowl, and then they added Quincy Williams and Jermaine Johnson the second, each being Pro Bowlers and all pros as well. So, this defense continually, since the onset, really bad, improves. And then they maintained that improvement in 2023. And then when everything is all set, okay, Aaron Rodgers, yes, he had his injury. It was kind of a fluke. For some reason, Achilles in 2023, that was just a touchy subject for quarterbacks especially. But, he's coming back from his injury, and we've gotten another offseason, and we're ready to go. Like, everyone's ready. The defense is going to be great, and the offense really showed flashes under Zach Wilson, so imagine what we can do with Aaron Rodgers. And so things are primed, and then that's when I'm going to pass it off to you, which is the 2024 season.
Yeah, so I'm going to look a little bit more into the exact stats of this season in particular, because I kind of give last season a wash, no Aaron Rodgers, which you planned on having all year, and so leading into this year, like you said, there was a lot of hype, a lot of hope for the Jets organization. You get rid of Zach Wilson, you're like, now we're fully hoping Aaron Rodgers is the future for at least this year. Maybe gets us to the playoffs, maybe puts us in a good position to take care of a slightly questionable looking AFC East. The Bills lost a lot of players, and it seemed like there was a power vacuum of sorts that the Jets might be able to fill if they're really good. So before they fired Robert Saleh, which was the Vikings game of week 5, it was after that game they fired him. And the stats before firing him, they were 2-3, so they had 2 wins, 3 losses. They were scoring 18.6 points per game and allowing just 17 defensive points per game. They were going for 286.6 offensive yards per game and allowing 255.8 defensive yards per game, with losses to the 49ers, the Broncos, and the Vikings, which, honestly, looking back on it, a healthier Niners squad, an overperforming expectations Broncos squad, and the Vikings, who are extremely good, those are realistic, honorable losses for the Jets to take against some stronger defenses. And, so their offensive struggles may not have been entirely the fault of the coaching staff. It may have been more of, these are just really strong teams that we're playing. Yeah. And we are winning some good games. They beat the Patriots pretty damn handedly with Robert Saleh, unfortunately. But since firing Robert Saleh, they have jumped up their offensive production a little bit at 19.8 points per game, but they have allowed almost 10 more points defensively per game at 26.9 versus 17 before firing him. And they've gone 1-7 in that stretch. So the biggest thing that I think is notable, I mean, the defensive points per game is insane, right? They have jumped up in offensive yards per game from 286 to 308. So they've gotten a little bit better offensively. But defensively, they went from allowing just over 250 to allowing over 330 yards per game defensively. And like I said before, they were struggling on offense, I think, because of the teams they were facing having really strong defenses. So I think that their offensive ranks now would have been identical to their offensive ranks before had they played the same schedule. Had they kept Robert Saleh, I don't think they lose any offensive production, despite having a defensive head coach. And then the losses... I
mean, you see a 1 point difference. Like, it's so negligible because you've played... It's 5 games to 8 games. Like, it's not a perfectly equal ratio that we're looking at here. So, yeah, there's might be a slight favor, especially considering the opponents there. And then, just to finish up on the defense itself, when you look at the yards and the yards allowed prior, you are hiring your defensive coordinator now to be your interim. He is now a lot less hands-on with the defense than he was prior. That's going to cause the defense to slip and not have as close preparations as when he didn't have to oversee the entire team.
And not just that, but the thing about a defensive head coach and then also having a defensive coordinator is you don't know who's calling the shots. But with Robert Saleh being a defensive coordinator for the 49ers and then leaving and being the Jets head coach and leading really strong defenses, you kind of know he's the reason for that. Mm-hmm. So it's not like Jeff Ulbrich is this defensive mastermind that's taken everything from Robert Saleh and can orchestrate a defense perfectly in his wake. And then just to touch on their losses, they lost to the Bills, the Steelers, the Patriots, the Cardinals, the Colts, the Seahawks, and the Dolphins since firing Robert Saleh. And that is a lot less honorable than those losses earlier in the season. So ultimately, this is just a discussion of the pre and post Saleh firing. I don't think it's a stretch at all to say they made a horrific decision by letting him go. And I think he will land on a team and do very well next year as a head coach, if not at least a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, when the Lions lose Aaron Glenn, hey man,
Hey, Bobby.
I wouldn't be mad. We both were very much keen on Robert Saleh as a head coach, and we did not agree with them firing him whatsoever when it happened, because they are still vying for the division at that time. And since you're 1-7 and 3 losses, you've lost to every team in the division since. It's not a great look for them. And with them now being officially eliminated from playoff contention after their last loss to the Dolphins, which, it was a long shot to begin with when you're sitting at a 1-6 streak, a 1-7, and now you're eliminated, you're out of it. And now we can kind of start to look at the future for this team, because it looks bleak. It looks very bleak with how Aaron Rodgers has been playing for the team, and when you look at, the overall construction of the roster. And this is another section I did a decent amount of the research in, and I do want your opinions on part of it. But just to put the facts out there with the projected facts, I suppose, with the projected draft selections for the team. Right now they're sitting at pick 7. They would be then picking at 38 and 96. I wanted to kind of give a full top 100 pick list for them, just to not, if they didn't have their second rounder, that's a lot more important, but to give a sense of where they sit at in those first 3 rounds. So they're sitting, pretty healthy, I would say. You got 3 picks in the top 100. You unfortunately don't have your own 3rd round pick. You have the Detroit Lions, but you got your own 1 and 2, and you're playing bad, so you've got some good draft capital there. But heading into free agency, you're sitting at 21st in the league in projected cap space with $32 million. And that's when I start to kind of hypothesize some things. And do you have anything to say on my hypothesations prior to me saying them?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of get into some of the things you've written here. I think that the idea of moving away from the Aaron Rodgers era in New York is definitely the move. Getting away from Aaron Rodgers, getting away from, his goons that he brings with him, Nathaniel Hackett, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb was there for a minute, right? Mm-hmm. This is literally just Aaron Rodgers being like, these are my boys, I want them on this team. And aye, Captain, we got you. We'll trade away Mike Williams, that's fine. So I think moving away from that era is the right move. However, I think it's really tough to do that when the upcoming free agent class for QBs is really not glamorous, and the upcoming draft class for QBs is equally not glamorous. You've got some possible starters in the future. I like Cam Ward, but I think he will probably go within the top 3. And I think that, maybe you take a flyer on a Drew Aller out of Penn State and hope that he turns into the next Josh Allen or something, as that's kind of his, rough but athletic profile. Well, okay, all right. It's the same profile as Anthony Richardson though as well, where it's he's got the tools, he just doesn't have the polished nature on
aspect of it. Yep.
Getting away from the potential draftees, I don't know if there's a better option in free agency or the draft than just sticking it out with Aaron Rodgers for another year. His cap hit in 2025 is only $9.5 million. That's what that number is, right?
No, that is the cap saving. So that is how much they would be saving if they cut him. Well, so they would be gaining 10 mil, rounding up there, in 2025, and then saving the 30 mil in 2026.
I think either way, 10 million I don't think is enough to get rid of Aaron Rodgers when I'm not sure if he is the worst option for you. Yeah. If he wants to return as a Jet, which he has said he does. So if he's willing to return to the team, I think you cut him after the 2025 season and hope that there's a better quarterback coming out of college then. But I don't know, man. It's looking bleak. And another thing, maybe Jordan Travis. They drafted him pretty late in the draft because of his injuries, and maybe he ends up being this. You take a late round flyer and it works out. But I do agree with probably gearing towards moving away from Aaron Rodgers and his goons. Definitely getting rid of Nathaniel Hackett and saying, "Look, Aaron, we're not going to let you run this team because this is your last year with us, and
Yeah.
we're not going to give you the reins to ruin our team just to have to fix it all next offseason when we're not paying you anymore." But yeah, if you want to get into what you think they should do with free agency, then I would like to know your.
I think you made a great point with like, okay, is it worth it or not right now to have Aaron Rodgers? Like, if you get rid of Nathaniel Hackett and you bring in a more competent OC, what can he do with Aaron Rodgers in what would be, kind of, unless he plays really well and gets a love for the football back, probably his final season, and move away from these, like, Alan Lazard is being paid a lot of money, 13 mil in both of these seasons. One of them, he takes dead cap in, so that's why that number is that. But when you try to gear up, you need to mainly acquire the talent to help the team. And in free agency, I don't think with 32 million you have much to make a splash to improve the defense. Yes, the defense is great. We've talked about the defensive roster. However, they have a lot of pieces that could likely be moving due to the fact that they only have 32 million to re-sign several pieces. And they also have been just struggling the rest of this season without Robert Saleh. Is that to say that they would have played better with Robert Saleh as the head coach? Maybe. Speculative there, but I would believe so, that the scheme isn't being implemented as well. And so my possible offseason moves were, okay, sign a year or two rental for a quarterback, so you get a Andy Dalton. I don't imagine Sam Darnold actually hits free agency, and you're not going to make that big of a splash.
Don't bring him back.
How he's played.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. That'd be silly. Don't do it. But I think that you, as you said, you kind of let a little buffer happen with quarterback because I had signing Andy Dalton as my pick after cutting Aaron Rodgers. And so you would do that. You acquire a top-end player for the offensive line because that's definitely a place where they have been struggling. It's part of why the reason the offense looks so rough is the health of the offensive line. So you acquire someone top-end on the offensive line through free agency because you actually have money for that. And then you draft defense because when you're sitting at 2 picks in the top 40, you want to build up the pieces that got you to this point. And offensively, you have an offense. You have drafted offense so heavily for all of these years because you wanted to see production rise. And it never really did. But defensively, you got defensive production because you drafted really good players at defense because you had so many picks high in the draft. And now you really need to key in on improving the defense to, well, not so much improve, but to be consistently good. Because after this season with potential losses to free agency, you could definitely be looking at next year. They are going to be bottom of the league, and they will be bottom of the league in both offense and defensive production, not just one of them. So I would really look to shore up the defensive side through the draft and then make offensive line additions because the offense as a whole, you got Devontae Adams, you got Garrett Wilson, and you got Breece Hall. Like, this is a great core of players in the skill positions. You just got to deepen up the trenches.
Yeah, and I think the trenches are not looking great in the draft. The offensive linemen, from what I've seen, there's a couple decent guys, but a lot of them are not top 10 pick worthy to me. But there are plenty of defensive players that definitely are. There's Will Johnson and Mason Graham, both Michigan guys.
Michigan guys, yep.
Yeah, Michigan corner, Michigan D tackle, where both of them are just basically like surefire prospects. And if you can, I mean, Will Johnson's a cornerback, so maybe don't go there. You don't really need to. But if you can shore up that D line, if you can get some better linebackers in there, maybe in the second round, whatever. But if you are a Jets fan, or actually I should ask you, are anything else to say on the Jets as a whole?
I do not.
Okay. So yeah, if you are a Jets fan, or if you have any insight into some of the top prospects in this draft, definitely let us know who you think would be the best fit, what you think they should do offensively. If you think they should get rid of Aaron Rodgers and just throw Jordan Travis to the Wolves, let him start for a full season and see what you got there. That's always an option. Just because if he sucks, then congrats, you have a top pick next year. And if he doesn't, hey, and you've got your quarterback. If you think they should do that, if you think they should go after a free agent guy, let us know what you think they should do, and if you think they can ever be good. Because as a Patriots fan, it's been great not seeing them ever be good ever. But yeah, let us know your thoughts down in the comments, and if you want to stick around, keep watching the rest of this podcast. If this is just the segment video, it's coming out tomorrow in one day, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Really had to think about that one. Got it right this time. And if you are here for the overall podcast, I appreciate you watching this far.